This is Dale, and I'm joined by Mike. One of the reasons that we started this show is because of the Thursday administration meeting of the county commissioners. All of the activity in county government, just about everything except for their meetings at the Rotary Club, it all happens at the Thursday meeting, not the Wednesday meeting. The Wednesday meeting is ceremonial. The Thursday meeting is where all the little gitchy details happened. And the thing is, there's so many in one day that it's overwhelming, and we can't produce 12 little videos. It's just by the time we finish with those, it would be back to regular meetings again. And so this is such a blessing, this show, because what we can do is we can tell you the little things that happened. They are little and maybe not even worthy of a 3 or 4 minute segment, or maybe they go by so fast that you can't make a 3 or 4 minute segment out of them literally. But the cumulative effect of hearing some of these things again and again, or the little insights that you form about the personalities of the people, and why would you care about the personalities? Because it has a huge impact on what the commissioners do and the way that they vote and their attitude about the public. And we could give you plenty of examples of that, but we're going to just delve straight into it. I'm going to start off by something that happened to me this morning at a grocery store. But before I go off and...
Hey, Dale, before you take off into all of that, let me just say that Dale just summed up his reasoning for wanting to do this show, that he can give you the little pieces of news that save him from making a 3 or 4 minute video. My personal motivation is I want to decimate economic development in Josephine County.
You're part of the tragedy that Cheryl Walker was talking about?
Yes, that's right. I know, that's very funny. Continue.
Okay, thank you. It was really entertaining this morning, early, before I went to the 9 a.m. meeting. And the 9 a.m. meeting that lasted for 2 hours and 15 minutes, by the way. You can all thank me later when you see me for sitting through that. So I'm in the supermarket, and this guy walks up to me, and he says, "You're Dale Matthews, aren't you?" And I go, I'm always reluctant sometimes to answer, but I said, yes, I am, anticipating the best. He said, "Oh, I really love your show. It's really funny, and, I love the website, and you're keeping their feet to the fire." And oh, thank you. He says, "By the way," now, because he's one source, see, we try to be very careful about this. I wish the Courier knew this rule about journalism. If you don't have at least 2 independent sources, don't tell the story, no matter how good it is. So I will change the names to protect the guilty. So he says, "I used to hang around a lot with official, and we often go bar hopping in the evenings." Don't know who you're talking about. And he said, "And I often would say to this person," see, you don't even know if it's a guy or a girl, "I would often say to him," that's my joke, "you can't continue to do this kind of stuff and then get in your vehicle and drive off, because one of these days you're going to kill somebody, or you're going to get caught." That's what he actually said, "you're going to get caught." And this official said, "Oh, I have a great relationship with the police." I'm not really sure that's true, but that's what this person said to him. And even if they did do something, why, I'd end up in court in Jackson County. I got lots of lawyer friends. Hey, there's nothing to worry about.
That reminds me vaguely of something I've heard recently.
Now, don't be jumping to conclusions. It's just generic information. Right. We get this all the time. People are coming up to us all the time and they're saying, "I've got all these details." But unlike Doug Deakins, where it happened to his family members, they just can't get up and say it. They just can't be counted. They're afraid of retaliation. And because of what happened to Doug Deakins, and the very first thing that Simon Hare did after denying it all, of course, was to threaten Doug Deakins. And, some people say, I would have clocked the guy. Well, he threatened him. And Doug showed up in public anyway. And even now, there are people, these people just make me crazy. They're complaining because they say, oh, this Doug Deakins guy, he got his 10 minutes of fame. Really? You really think that's why he did it? Really? Is this the world you live in, where that's why you think this guy complained about a drunken commissioner grabbing their cell phone and texting young girls? Really? Because he wanted publicity for himself?
That is what they think. Either that, or they are just they've drank so much Kool-Aid that they can't see things any other way.
Wow. Okay. All right. So now here's your challenge, and Mike's going to get this challenge too. This happens. I used to, at the very beginning, joke around with the guy from KJO. What do you think today's story was from the admin meeting? You don't see him there very often. And Jim Moore. Jim every once in a while shows up and then he leaves early. He's from the Courier. And I used to say, I don't bother doing this now because they don't see any stories at any time, no matter what, even when I'm badgering them at a meeting. What about the cost overruns? They're not going to write anything about cost overruns. $100,000 cost overruns? Not a story. So here's the challenge to you. I'm going to tell you, sorry, everybody. I'm going to tell you like 11 or 12 little things that happened at the Thursday administration meeting, and then I'm going to ask you at the end, so you got to pay attention. What do you think is the story of the day? So, okay, let's all be journalists together. Here we go. So they're in the order that they happened, but they're not in order of precedence, in my opinion. You make that decision. And Mike gets to participate too. This will be fun. It's a little unfair for Mike because he couldn't be there for the whole dang thing. That's bad enough that one of us has to sacrifice for this. But I will bring it back to all of you, and then you tell us what you think. Okay. One of the things that came up is the commissioners talked about a new survey question. Time is running out. They need to do it by the end of this month, by the 30th. If they're going to put a survey question on the ballot, like, do you believe in kittens and sunshine? Yes or no? Then they need to put it on there coming up pretty soon. And none of them can come up with any questions that they feel that they need to ask of the public. Do you have anything that you think would be a good question? No, I don't. Do you? No. I've got one for them. How about a question? It would be non-binding because it would be illegal to pass a law like this. How about if the question said, as voters, are you tired of whatever group, insert name here, coming back to you every year, sometimes twice a year, and bugging you about a levy? What an interesting survey question that would be, because you know the kind of responses they'd get?
Yeah, I can just save you a little time on this little quiz here. That's not going to happen. They're not interested in your answer to that question. But those questions that they put on the ballot, they're kind of silly, and the whole point of them really is to make it seem like they're doing something when they're not doing anything.
Well, the last one was, if a forest burns up and now it's made up of dead trees and they're all lying there and nothing's going to happen, are you in favor of picking up the dead remnants and try to sell them? Let me think. There were actually people who said, no, I don't think that we should. But of course they got like 98.9% of people say so. Would they? It's like the question. I love this one. Would you be in favor of on your ballot if there was a selection that said none of the above?
Yeah, you're not going to see that one either.
No, they'll never ask that question. Even if they don't do it, they don't want to know what you think about that. Okay, that's number one. Okay, now here's one that I thought was pretty interesting. We will make this into a video. J.J. Scofield is the new Human Relations Director, HR Director, relatively new, and they're talking about cost of living adjustments. Woohoo! Everybody should be paid more. Fortunately, at least in my opinion, and unfortunately too, you'll understand why. The commissioner said, no, I really just don't think that we can do that. Once again, we can't do it. J.J. Scofield responded, well, usually the county commissioners do grant cost of living adjustments. Simon Hare said,
Right.
what do you mean usually? He said, since I've been in office, we've never done that. And before I was in office, we never did that. J.J. Scofield, head of human relations, said we usually do in this county. J.J., what are you talking about? That is entirely false. And Simon called him on it. And JJ backed off real quickly. Well, by usually I mean, many years ago. That's like Cheryl Walker redefining a word. Usually does not mean many years ago. Remember when she said that hearsay is something that happened a long time ago?
Now, but cost of living adjustment, they have been raising people's pay.
Oh,
And that
this is
just
for. Sorry. I should have said it more. I should have said it better. Non-union employees,
Oh, gotcha.
because they're totally in charge of that, and they can decide in one instant whether that happens or not. Okay. Next one. So we've been dinging the commissioners for a while because we had asked. These are completely. I mean, they're in order, but there's no rhyme or reason why this one's first, the second. We've been asking the commissioners, please supply to the public that comes to the Basker, and there's between me, and a dozen people, not county officials, that show up at the Basker Auditorium. And a number of people have been saying, can you please supply us with the documents about which you were talking? One, at least put them online, which they don't always do, in the most transparent county in the world, in the entire world, not just in America. But this transparent group won't do it. But Simon had been saying, well, we'll see. And a couple of months ago, he said, we made up our mind. Really? Have you talked? What open public meeting did you decide this? No, this was just Simon. That we're not going to put the documents out there at all. We're just not going to do it. So, BadCounty.com, thanks to Mike, we always put the documents right out in the lobby so that if you wonder what the heck they're talking about today, then you can flip through that. It costs 12 cents. This is well beyond the budget of the commissioners. They have $100,000 plus for a cost overrun, but not 12 cents for documents. And so Simon, way back when we kept hitting him on this, when we brought it in, and both the other commissioners, you just keep bringing this up, and we don't need to hear this ever again. Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to hear this ever again, but here's our thing that we brought in, and just want to make sure that you know this is provided by BadCounty.com, the tragedy of the community, and we're supplying you with the documents. And so Simon says, well, maybe we can put an informational kiosk out there. What, are you kidding me? And it will be a computer, and you can look on the computer, and that'll be so much better than 10 sheets of paper. Really?
Wow.
So this
I wonder how much that cost.
So, yes, exactly. And so it's going to be more than 12 cents, right? So it's 12 cents every week. Do you realize there's going to be at least what expense? How can anyone afford this? We can out of our pocket. We're doing it for altruism. Altruism? What's that? Yeah, well, they don't know what that is. So we're doing it out of our pocket. We don't make any money off of this. Exactly the opposite, and Mike knows better than I. So here's the thing. He brought it up again. He says, by the way, do I have support from the other commissioners about putting up this informational kiosk? And his answer was, I swear they didn't even blink their eyes. Crickets in the corner. Okay.
Huh.
That's
nobody would have that.
Oh, they wouldn't even talk about it, okay? They weren't belligerent about it. They were just like Keith Hick at a meeting. If he had glasses, you would wonder whether his eyeballs were painted on the outside of the... Go ahead.
Unless he's berating someone for chortling.
Oh, that
You
was really. We're going to
that
put that.
again, I'll have you taken out of here in irons.
Because he had said that the commissioners at the weekly business session were not involved in any way with the latest levy. And I'm going to make a special video out of this and show it to you again from August 7. And I'm going to combine that with him saying we have nothing to do with this, and I just couldn't help but laugh. And then put the video next to that, and you'll see for yourselves the truth is, and the title of it will be, I've got my notes up here, the title of it's going to be Levy 2015, not citizen originated as advertised. It's been a commissioner project from the start. I went to SOS and I told them about this, and they went, "Oh," when it first happened in August.
Well,
This
you know
levy
what?
did start with the commissioners. Go ahead.
Yeah, it started with the whole of government hierarchy here.
Well, yes.
That's how this stuff works. That's how these little citizen groups. That's how they work, and it's a big sham.
Well, okay, so here's one of the things that happened. This was not at today's meeting, but somebody's passing by the table that they have there for collecting signatures, and hovering around there and talking with them. I don't know if she sat at the table. Connie Roach. Now, wait a minute. Remember, Connie Roach was the person that said that when you have your signature things to turn them in, bring them into the courthouse. Come on up to my office as the county assessor and turn in your levy sheets. Really? And I said, no, wait a minute. How are you, as commissioners in county government, going to say that you're totally divorced from this process when one of the central points to gather the sheets is in the assessor's office? Boy, they gave
Yeah,
me, oh, you're saying things that are untrue. This is what she said.
I'll believe the citizen based levy push when when the people that are involved in this drive have nothing to do with government, but every single time the primary drivers are government officials, government employees, they're somehow in the beneficiary chain that has to do with, I mean, who gets the levy money?
Well, you can say Archie Leidy is the head guy because he does most of the talking. Jay Meredith kind of runs the organization. I guess you could say kind of runs the organization. Jay Meredith
Mm-hmm.
is the finance director of the city. Connie Roach
Yeah, and
is the assessor for the county.
the funny thing, Jay Meredith reminds me of the kind of guy who gets the White House press secretary job.
Yep.
Very, very glib and just he's a good speaker.
Yes.
But he's that kind of guy. He's
He ran that meeting.
inside the
He ran that
beltway.
meeting on Tuesday night. He was the moderator, if you have a
Right.
moderator for pre-packaged announcements. Okay, next one is, oh, I love this one. So they're doing a little talk about tobacco and the dangers of tobacco. The dangers of tobacco, especially for kids. And so you tell me if you think I'm making too much of this. So the health department has a new tobacco czarina, a new person in charge of warning us all about the dangers of tobacco. Okay, just in case you wonder, her salary is paid for apparently by the state. Okay, all right, so it comes out of our other pocket. And
Right.
and they've just recently completed a project where they got a bunch of high school kids to use. They gave them some high-tech iPads or something like that, and the kids went out on their own, and happy kids, and they went around to I guess all of the local stores or whatever, and put down a bunch of information into their little iPads. They were so happy to do it, about energy drinks and about the availability of tobacco products and stuff like that. And they gathered the information, and then our county made sure that that information was forwarded on to the state. Okay, so there's many ways to summarize this. Local children help with a wonderful project. Kittens play in the sunshine. No, no, that's another story. How about county teaches kids how fun it is to collect information about their neighbors and turn it over to the state?
Yes. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. And listen, in reality, uh, any information that you're giving government about the products you're using or how you're using them or whatever, at this point, I just distrust them almost entirely. That's going to be used against you in some way. Either you're going to be paying for something or you're going to have a product that you like that's not available to you anymore because they regulate the crap out of it.
The thing is to remember the 7-cheese pizza, the 7-county IGA, Intergovernmental Agreement. And one of the objections that I had to it was that we were gathering up information about local companies and turning it over to the state. So they were going to do what with it? Why, that's just going to go into a database. And I'd asked Cheryl Walker, well, what's step 2? Oh, I'm not aware of a step 2. Well, of course she was, because she admitted at the next meeting. She's a liar. She just lies to us. Sometimes she just flat out lies. Well, step 2 would be that the state sends people down here to enforce the law and to go and find out if you've reported correctly. That's step 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another one. Okay.
And after that, there's a step 3 and 4, but
yeah.
Thankfully we stepped in and got rid of the rest of the steps. And thank you, informed populace.
We're just turning information over to the state. Why? What could go wrong?
Right.
Okay, so over to the state. Wow, it's an amazing coincidence that this case it is our state, but turning information over to the state. I'm seeing banners flying and people in black uniforms. Too much history, I know. Okay, so homeless kids.
The state as a.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh
so,
no.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, all right. So homeless kids. Well, they started talking about some information they have about how many homeless kids there are, and they got it down to the smallest nth degree. Really? Sure, I'm going to trust that they know everything. They've counted every last hair on the head of homeless kids. And when you think of homeless kids, you think what we all think. And so they said, groupthink. And so they say, well, there are, 391 and a half in Jackson County, and then there was less of them here in Josephine County. And they say, and so, this is a real problem. Mark Gatlin is in the audience. And he goes, oh, no. And I'm thinking, oh, man. And so then Simon Hare had enough intelligence to say, well, what do you really mean by homeless? Because, most of us think as homeless as you're living in a box.
Right. Under a bridge.
Yeah, you're literally out on the street. And how in the world can they go to school if they're living in a box? Or they're living on a sidewalk? Or they're sleeping on one of these expensive city park bus benches that are made specifically so that you can't sleep on them. You have to sleep in a pretzel shape or something. Anyway, well, they defined homeless as living in an environment that wasn't really stable. Heck, I lived in an environment that wasn't really stable sometimes with my parents. They were at each other's throats. But I wasn't homeless.
Yeah. No, I by that definition, I was homeless probably half of my teenage years.
Yeah, well, this is the new definition of homeless. That, well, maybe you're living with your aunt and your uncle. I'm not homeless. Okay, I'm not saying we shouldn't be sympathetic. Of course we should be sympathetic. Come on. But this is now homeless?
Yes, but there's a purpose behind inflating those numbers, and it has to do with funding.
Oh.
It has to do with money. Follow the money, and this is it's just add it to the list of reasons why you should not trust government. Trust but verify.
Oh, yeah, like with the Russians. Okay, I remember Ronald Reagan saying that. Okay, and the next one is about, so Cheryl Walker has in mind some things about the licensing of dogs. She's really tight about this thing of licensing for dogs. You may remember the story that they had before, and this seems like the one with the kids earlier, where her idea was that local veterinarians in the whole county, they would maintain a database of everybody that comes in with their pet. And if the people want to get them vaccinated, for example, but if they choose not to get them licensed, that the vets feel they can't force the people to get them licensed because it's just a fee, it's a tax. That's all that it is. That they would maintain this database of people who came in to get little Fluffy vaccinated, but didn't want to license little Fluffy and put something around Fluffy's neck. And Fluffy's
Right.
just their daughter, so this is really bad. And so then they would turn this information over to, not over to the state, but over to, I guess, Cheryl Walker personally, or over to the county, and then we'd have this database of people who were not licensing their animals. And best of all, the vets would be paid to maintain this database of their customers, and turn it only paid after they turn it over to the county. And it gets better. And the vets that turn in the most names of
Oh,
their neighbors will get a special commendation from the county that might, this is only a guess, even include some kind of monetary reward.
you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I am going to drop one of the most overused analogies ever. Nazi Germany.
I don't see how
Okay.
you could avoid it. The
I
same thing
mean
occurred.
that's insane.
Well, so
Hello, there's going to be revenue coming somewhere there. Sooner or later, they're not spending all this money with these vets without thinking that at some point we're going to go to your house and fine you for not having a tag on your dog's neck.
and when you show up, the person's going to say, you know what? Fluffy is no longer a problem.
Whew.
All right, all right. This is politically incorrect to say. How can he say such a thing? Come on. So anyway, here's what's going on with our new state representative, Carl Wilson, in relationship to this story. Cheryl Walker has gotten together without you knowing, without the commissioners knowing, with Carl Wilson to encourage Carl to work on the state level to force us to do some of the things that she wants. Really, think of this again. You're elected Cheryl Walker. She won by 62 votes. I mean, what an astounding majority of people. And she's influencing Carl Wilson. If we're not going to do it, because the vets locally acted horrified. We're not going to do that. What, are you crazy? This reminds me of, sorry to use this analogy, and it sounds like Mike Jones is saying it, but it sounds like Nazi Germany. And so now what she's doing is she's trying to get Carl Wilson to help change state law, so now we'll be forced to do some of the things she's talking about. That's Cheryl Walker. That's Carl Wilson. You wanted him. You got him.
Yeah, that's you know what? I don't know.
Hey, okay, here's the next one. Now, don't forget now, all of you, you're
Yeah,
supposed to
right.
be
We're
picking
supposed
out
to be tabulating.
the top
What
story.
is the most?
Right. What is the headline of this day? 103% of the sheriff's overtime budget has already been used. The fiscal year is half over. This sheriff has only been in like 3 weeks, right? Um,
Right.
the time is half over, and they've used 103% of their overhead, where obviously overtime, which means that it should be somewhere near 50% for overtime. But once again, year after year after year, they're at this point or worse, like 120% is used halfway through the year, and they have to come back for more money. Well, so the question is, if this happens year after year after year, then you're obviously not planning correctly, because how can it be every year that you've planned and you know it's going to be the same as the last 3 or 4 years that you've used more than half of it. It's like saying, well, there's only enough oxygen to last for 3 hours, and it runs out every year after 10 minutes.
Right.
At what point do you say, there's something wrong with our plans, and let's be accurate in what we're asking for? Accuracy? They don't want to be accurate. Okay, Dimmick retaining wall. Oh, this is lovely. Okay, so they've gone well over $100,000 over budget, which is not in the Courier, will never be in the Courier, it looks like now, and just nostalgic memories of the hospital where I lost my leg. And now everything is down to the ground at the Dimmick Tower area, except for a retaining wall. A retaining wall? Really? No, they're going to leave that wall up. What do you mean you're going to leave that wall up? You can't leave the wall up. Well, it turns out that this wall, this retaining wall, according to the experts, can't be removed at the moment because it would damage the foundation of the building next to it. Fellas, you're the experts. You bid on this project to take down the building, and pardon me, you're saying that you can't take down part of the building because it will influence the building next to it. What kind of planning is this? I mean, I'm not a building demolition expert. I'm just a tragedy for the county. But really, we're going to need to leave up some part of the building because we dare not take it down because we didn't take into account that if you take that down, the next building may collapse? Really?
You know what? To be honest, Dale, I think that I would want to see that situation that they were talking about, because it may well be that there's a retaining wall, which is maybe not part of the old building that they took down, but part of that property that that does retain the soil, and taking it down may well affect the foundation of the next door building there. So that may well be valid.
I'm sure that it is valid. I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure that they don't want to take it down because it's going to cause problems. The only question I have is, this was not part of the plans. Oh, really? We spent a lot of money on this, and they didn't know this. Well, okay, another nice little, no, we won't call it a surprise. We'll call it a feature of this project. Yes. Two more. Oh, brother, you're going to love this. So they're talking now about spending a fortune, I mean really a fortune, and changing over the entire courthouse to a single point of entry so that you can't walk in down through the treasurer's offices and stuff downstairs and up through an elevator on one side and in through the front door. They're thinking that perhaps they should close off the front door altogether, and Cheryl's plan is everybody will enter through the basement. It's the perfect symbol for this administration. Everybody, except for the employees, of course, and of course they get, but we'll all enter through the basement, and then we'll be greeted by someone saying, "Who are you here to meet? And do you have an appointment with them?" She kept mentioning appointment. Cheryl, do you realize what this sounds like? Well, this is my county courthouse, and I just thought I'd come in and wander around. Well, no, nobody does that. Why would anybody come to the courthouse, including me? But I'm there. Well, with whom do you have an appointment? Buddy, I came in to see a meeting. Do you have an appointment with them? Okay, so she keeps bringing up appointments. So what's this about a single point of interest? Well, one of the plans, Cheryl's plan was that walking in the front door, you'd have this serpentine path. And it would need to go back and forth, 3D. It would need to go back and forth in the front lawn area. and keep twisting back and forth because it can't be above a certain grade because of wheelchair ramps. It comes back again, wheelchair ramps. Imagine how many jobs this will create after the wheelchair ramps are created. And so it was going to have to go back and forth a whole bunch of times, and everybody entering through the front would have to go up through the ramp because you can't have them taking some place because this is not safe. And then there would be this guard and a place to check in your Second Amendment rights, and you would not be allowed. And what's the reason behind all this? What are you, crazy? They would shut off the stairs and all this because the courts upstairs and increasingly our county commissioner secretaries are feeling unsafe. You know, you never know when the next revolution is going to start, which then explains things at the federal level about buying hollow point bullets and all the rest of that, which are illegal by international claim. Anyway, so but well, let's all just forget about that. Forget.
Or they're illegal. Hollow point bullets are perfectly legal, by the way.
Oh, yes, they are, especially in places like Libya. So they want to close down the access to the courts because bad guys could come in. Well, yes. So here's the simple solution. When people come into the building, if they want to go up to the second floor, create a place where they have to go through to get to the second floor. Oh, no, no, no. We have to do it for the whole building, for everybody. No, no. Courts have the problem. They feel insecure, so you just make it so that they have to get into an elevator, and the only way they can get up to the courts is to go through that elevator and make sure either at the bottom of the elevator or at the top of the elevator they're greeted by a SWAT team. That's all that you need to do, okay? But no, Cheryl Walker's plan is the whole building has to be locked down and secure, and this is going to cost us a fortune. The cost for doing the elevator part, because they're already an elevator, the cost for doing that would be either nothing, literally nothing, or fairly minimal. You know, for county government, fairly minimal would be $100,000 cost overrun. But instead, it could end up being $1 million. And they're moving ahead with this plan.
Yeah, but Dale, think of the jobs. You're not thinking about this right.
I keep forgetting about all the jobs.
Listen, in addition to having to watch this show so I can make a list of all these topics and figure out which one is the top one, I am going to work feverishly coming up with a metric so I can determine how many jobs we are killing here every night, and then we'll post a little tally on the screen at the end of the show to show how many jobs we killed.
He's saying this because Cheryl Walker, after a year of research, has finally come up with the answer about what's killing economic development, and I am not kidding you. What's killing economic development in Josephine County? It's this show.
Yeah. It's BadCounty.com.
It is. She says that people who may come and move their companies here, in fact, worse than that, the people who gather up and help companies to move here, are now telling her, she won't say who these companies are or how many, but it's a plural, so it's more than one, that they're calling this bad county crap. Pardon me, but I'm quoting my commissioner. Can you imagine what a cow that Keith Heck would have if I got up and quoted the commissioner? You're not going to use that kind of language. I'm quoting the commissioner. Oh, no, we're not going to allow that. You're going to be removed. Okay, and that instead of being a kind of a funny show, that it's a tragedy. Where it's a tragedy. Because we insist on pointing out the goofy things that the county commissioners are doing. So, okay, point out the goofy things. Here we go, Mike. Everybody has their own personal opinion. Some people think it's the kids collecting information and being taught how to be good little Nazis. Or some of them are saying, oh, no, what a wonderful project. Oh, and I like the idea of putting a bell on Fluffy, and I want Carl Wilson to be involved in every step of the way. Why, let's all get a bell put around our necks, okay? I'm entirely in favor of that. So what do you think is from all these little gitchy stories. Usually I've got a pretty good idea of what I think the top story is. What do you think is the top story of the day?
Well, maybe it's because it's just the most recent in my memory here, but it has to be, I think, the the maze that Cheryl Walker wants to put us through to get into the courthouse. I think that's probably it. Although I'm going to have to review it. I mean, really, and we've covered a lot of ground here,
I
and
have to sit
I
through
may have
two
to go
hours of
back
this.
and.
2 hours of this kind of stuff. Every week, people say, "How can you stand?" I said, "Thank you for going. I'm so glad I don't have to." Because here's their summary. There you go. And Jim Moore
Right.
walks out of this, and you know what the story is in the Courier? Two people were
Hmm.
appointed to a committee today. That's it.
Right. Well, you know what, and I think this. I mean, take note of this, people. Dale does go to every single one of these meetings, and most of the time they are very, very dull and boring, and with a smattering of excitement. And he goes and sees that stuff and brings this news to us, and we all need to know it. You know, we all need to know it, and uh, your alternative is transparency by their standard.